everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel for the first time. My name is Lizzie. I hope you're doing good, feeling swell, everything's going good. How are you out there? Guys, I never went to bed last night. I've been up doing shit all day. I just went out to eat with my mom, who just got home from Arkansas, and you know that point where you eat so much food and you're just like I just feel winded, but it was nice to get out. My state's been locked up for a while, so it was nice to get out and actually eat in a restaurant like before the world went to shit. Representing for Syracuse, that's where I'm from. So, hello I got a bleach stain. I used to wear this when I cleaned houses. Don't mind my bleach stain. I'm just representing Syracuse. I had a nice long sweater on, but it was annoying. I wore it out to eat, and I'm like, I need to get comfy. I have sweatpants on. I took my leggings off. I'm like, fuck it. I ate so much food. I need my comfy pants. You know what I mean out there. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a lot of videos, and I'm going to be talking about Meghan and Harry for the next probably 4 hours, and I hope, seriously hope, that this is the last time I have to do this for a while. But there's no more surprising, shocking, tell-all interviews that I need to cover. But this one is going to be a chat about the psychological aspect of Harry. I represented Harry in a lot of the debates in my area. I was captain of his team for the roundtable discussions for years. I feel like I understand Harry more than Meghan, and I'm also a healer, and I help people overcome trauma in a holistic sense. In no way am I saying I'm a psychologist or any kind of medical doctor, so take this as you will, accept what you will, leave what you don't get upset by it. We don't have to nitpick things to death, but I just want to do these psychological talks. This one will be about Harry. I'm doing another one about Meghan. I'm not trying to persuade your feelings in any aspect, but I feel like it really helps to understand people and the decisions they make and the choices they make in their life if you understand the deeper level of things. As a healer, it is my job to read people and read situations and read between the lines and see past the bullshit to help people really understand their trauma, to overcome it. Not because we're judging them, or not because nobody's perfect. We all have shit. I feel like if you understand Harry's shit, maybe you'll understand why he does what he does. Alright, so I have 2 pages for Harry. I have 2 pages for Meghan's talk next. Then I'm going to do a talk comparing Diana's life to Meghan's life and how they mix in a creepy way. Well, I feel it's creepy, you might not. And then the last one will be about the interview itself. Again, this is about Harry. I'm just telling you what's coming up. Alright, so let's start when Harry was little. To understand the mentality when he's little, understands how he learns to process things. So we're going to start early, and then we're going to hop to when he met Meghan. I have an itch, sorry. Irish skin in the winter. Anyway, let's talk about his royal upbringing. And from a very early age, he understood that there was a pecking order to things. He was told from members of his family, hearing it in the press, there was the heir and there was the spare. So from a very early age, Harry, his world view and his personal view of himself was, I'm not the important one. I'm just here in case something happens to my brother. I'm just here to entertain people. I'm not the one that really matters. And to understand that from a very early age really affects how you self-love and how you see yourself and how you feel that the world sees you. So from a very early age, Harry in his mind is not the important one, not important, kind of like a joke to everyone, got the heir and the spare, people laughed it off, but that creates a lot of pain and a lot of discontent in a small mind. And from a very early age to, like, it's not like a normal family like we have. In a normal, everyday, good parent home, they don't play favorites. They work extra hard so that nobody thinks the other one is the favorite. If one person gets a piece of candy, they all get a piece of candy. They all get the same amount of Christmas presents. They try to give the same amount of attention. It's not like how we are raised. They can't grasp how we are raised, and we can't grasp the mentality that they are raised in. It's seriously, I'm not saying this to be extremely offensive, I'm just saying it so you could get your mind around it. They're basically raised in a cult. What I mean by that is, like, look at a cult, right? You have your own area, you're stuck in your own society, surrounded by your own types of people, and you have rules and regulations you have to follow. There's usually a leader, you know what I mean? So there's the queen, they have their people, they're protected in their palace, and they're drove around by security guards. They lived in even though they have everything they ever want, they live in a bubble. So Harry grew up in a cult. There's no way to dance around the situation. I'm not saying it's like an evil cult, religious, I'm just saying so you understand to stop viewing them. I know Diana was loving. I know that they wanted for nothing physically, but in emotional aspects, they didn't have the childhood we have. And this is what a lot of people forget. Like, I watched a couple documentaries about the upbringing and Diana's life and all that. I've been researching for weeks leading up to, well, not weeks, probably a week, but leading up to this interview, we were told in one of the documentaries that certain sweets were held for William and certain drinks and stuff, and Harry had to wait for William to get his before he could get anything. And I know that seems small and trivial, but this is when you're young, your mind and your emotional comprehension is forming. And to see that you're not worthy of things until the other one gets it, that is very damaging to somebody's soul and how they self-love. And I'm sure William I'm going to do a video in a couple days about William and the other side of the monarchy. I'm not just going to focus on these two in the psychology department, but we will talk about Will later and how he was damaged and what his effects were. But we're talking about Harry, and here's a boy where Diana was really the only one that tried to have them treated equally, and it was very hard for her to do that because she would take them to visit or take them to family events, and they're all used to the pecking order. They're all used to, there's a way of doing things, so Diana can only do it to an extent. So there's only one person really in Harry's life that makes an important impact in trying to tell him that you matter and that you're not just a spare, you have a purpose here, you're important. And then he lost that figure, that one solid structure that gave him worth and gave him love and emotional support right on the cusp of becoming a man. Like, he was still a boy when she died, and that was very damaging because not only did he lose his mother, he lost his entire support system. And I don't think he's had a support system since Diana. And to live in that bubble and have that relationship with his mother, I feel like when she was gone and when he really started reacting and needing someone else to talk to and realized that there was no one to go to like his mom, that was even more damaging to his growth. But let me back up a little. So let's talk about the fact that they have to have that stiff upper lip. And royals are to be smiling and waving like basically robots. They can't have emotional outbursts. They really don't like it when you cry or show emotion. I know Diana showed emotion. sometimes the queen cries, but it's on a rare occasion that you see any emotion from a royal family member. So here is young Prince Harry growing up in this bubble, and it basically makes a human being emotionally constipated. They don't know how to show emotions, and they don't know how to separate emotions because they're not allowed to talk about emotions. They don't know how to handle other people's emotions or outbursts they consider outbursts. Like Diana came into the family and she had a lot of emotional outbursts to them, the firm. But really that was somebody who was taught a different way to was raised in a different way, raised that they could voice themselves, that they could have emotions, that they could feel certain ways. And then here's the firm who is raised to be robots, and it's detrimental to how you process your feelings. I mean, as they grow, they can understand anger, they can understand sadness, but they're not good at processing with their mind, like, this is why I'm mad, this is why I'm lonely, this is why I'm sad. It's like it all gets jumbled together because they never learned a processing system. It was never accepted to have emotions, so they don't know the appropriate ways to show emotions, which would lead, especially as children, to outbursts themselves, reacting for attention, reacting because they're angry and they don't know what to do about it. I really don't feel like these two boys had the proper emotional and mental support when their mother died. I know that the family rallied around them. They might have brought someone in to speak to them. I highly doubt it though, but there is a whole process to how, first of all, no child is able or ready or knows how to handle a death of a parent. And you have to be very careful in how you take care of that child who's grieving. You have to allow them. There's several stages of grief, and you have to allow them the release, and you have to teach them the tools to release it in the first place, and you have to create a comforting and safe zone so that they can get these feelings out, and they didn't have any of that. So they grew up with a lot of resentments, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, loss, torment that they don't know how to express. They become emotionally constipated robots as adults because that's how they had to react as a child through these traumatic events. And they had to stay silent about it. They weren't allowed to speak. And if they did try to speak to somebody about how they were feeling as young boys, they were told either that that's not how you handle things or you just need to get over it. It was very cold, brush it, you need to move on with yourself. Like, maybe not right away, but like a year or two goes by, and like, why are you still talking about this? You have to move on, even though they're children. And maybe they didn't even talk about it until years after their mom died. I'm sure they talked to each other about it because that's all they had. It was probably the reason why they were so close. They were only allowed to show those emotions or only knew how to express those emotions to each other because they were both going through the same thing. Again, very detrimental and damaging to how they see the world and how they feel about themselves. So you have somebody who is emotionally damaged from a great trauma. You have somebody who's emotionally constipated and doesn't know how to process, deal, or feel feelings. And then you're grown up to be a spare. So you don't know, you're not taught self-love. You're not taught ways to value and appreciate yourself because you're a backup plan. For a young mind to grasp that, it damages the rest of how they see themselves. I highly doubt that Harry practices self-love, or he finds it very hard to love himself. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Okay, so then growing up, a lot of people, like friends in school, people want to use them, want them for things, want to catch them in the act and take pictures and sell them to the tabloids. They're taught to not trust the public, to not trust other people like them. So they have a hard time making friendships. And even if they make friendships, they have a hard time being themselves because they have to maintain this image all the time. Even when they're in their own space and they're away from press, they still don't. There's always that fear of putting the foot wrong or making an embarrassment or getting in trouble or somebody, telling a story about them. So they're always having to maintain this character of themselves, even though it's not who they really are. So they don't really know how to be themselves to others. They don't even know how to be themselves to their family members. It's very hard to understand how a young boy or a young teenager could live like that. It's stifling. And because he lived like that, when he grows up to be a man, his processing and his reasoning isn't going to be good. Let's get into it some more. Just for a second, taking a detour. This is what I understand most about Harry and why I defended him for as long as I did. Our traumas, my trauma and his trauma, are two ends of the spectrum, but they were both very, very damaging to our characters and happened when we were young. Something horribly happened to me when I was a child over a span of several years, and I never said anything. I never talked about it. I kept it inside. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know what to do about it. And growing up that way, I was severely damaged on how my processing skills were and how I self-loved and how I had relationships with other people was all affected by that trauma. And Harry had a trauma in his life, which is losing his mother, and I'm sure he had several other traumas, but I see that part of myself in Harry, and I can understand it, of never being able to talk about it, damaging your whole life, tearing up with just thinking about no child should have to live like that. So this is what I'm hammering home to you. Although we can't, I know he's a grown man and he makes his decisions and he makes his choices and he's going to have to answer for them. But I feel like most people forget that these boys were raised in a very toxic, very cruel, not that the firm is meaning to do that or their family members, that was also how they were raised as well. This damage goes back centuries. It's just passed on from generation to generation. They don't know any better. So don't think for 1 second that I'm talking shit about anyone. They're all kind of in the same boat, But it's just, if you could take a minute and you could pause and you could see a child with trauma and no way to voice themselves, no way to process it, no one helping them, not getting the love and affection that they need to be able to express things, not having someone to explain and give them tools to release that pain, to grow up. This is why he's acting the way he is now, why he's reacting these issues with his father. I feel like Harry carries around a lot of anger and resentment. He's now watching all these stories and documentaries coming about his mother when he was younger. He didn't know the full story. He only knew what he saw. And he saw that his mother was hurt and that his dad had an affair and she had affairs and they fought and it was very horrible and toxic, and his mother died, so he never, in Harry's mind, his mother is a saint, never did any wrong. There was nothing she could have done, and in his mind, it's my dad's fault. He didn't protect her. He didn't take care of her. There's a little bit of blame, I feel like, in Harry's body, and a lot of anger and resentment for things that was done to his mother that he never got to voice. But he also feels this way about the press. I feel like he blames the press more, but he still has that anger towards his father and the Queen and Camilla for what was done to his mother. Because in Harry's eyes, his mother is the ultimate woman, the ultimate angel on earth. She could do no wrong. And, that's his mom. So we'll get into that stuff later. But the reason why I brought up my stuff is because probably between the ages 30 and 32, I just went through this. Like, my body wouldn't let me hold it anymore, wouldn't let me hold the pain and the anger. And for 2 years, I would just, go from 0 to 60 with my family members. Like, you weren't there for me, you didn't protect me, you didn't get the help that I need. They didn't know what was happening to me. They didn't know that I was yelling about something in my childhood. I was releasing pain, and here they are like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you so mad? Like, we went through 2 years of a difficult relationship, especially with my father. I argued with my mother, I argued with my siblings, but it was like all my childhood stuff that I never said, because I didn't talk about my trauma until I was like college age, and even then I didn't talk about it much, and still to this day I can't talk about it very easily, but it was all coming out of my body in ways I couldn't control. And I feel like this is what is happening to Harry over these last couple of years. It hit home, with his mother growing up, being around the age she was, and just realizing the toxicity that she was around. Now, being married himself and being a father and seeing all these documentaries, he's got anger and he's got resentment and he's got pain, and he doesn't know how to process it. And it's like escaping his body. He wants to be free of it. He's realizing that he needs to heal this, but has no support in doing that. I don't even think Megan is a support in doing that, because she's got her own issues, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I feel so bad in that aspect of, when you see him talk about his family, or he's talking about, I didn't have support. I believe him. I understand him in that mentality, because like I said, I can see a lot of myself before I healed. I'm very fortunate that I have people in my life that I can. My family is very supportive. We have a great relationship now. And had I been able to talk about what I was going through when I was younger, they would have helped me. But Harry never had that. That's why he's never healed. So let's deal a little bit more. Get back to my page. I'm getting a little off track. So he grew up with no emotional support, and he never really dealt with his mom's death and never got the support in that. His relationships in his family and with his friends was very strained, most of the time very cold, very distant. People used him a lot for things and money, so he grew this natural I don't trust, or it's hard to let people in. He built armor around himself. So when it came to dating, even before Megan, he was dating women who tended to be needy or toxic, or was another tortured soul. Because when you're a tortured soul and you're lost and kind of a toxic person yourself, not that that's a bad thing, because you can be toxic without realizing it, you're going to attract another toxic person. So he would be dating women that had issues themselves. So I don't think he ever really had an example of a healthy relationship around him or in his own personal life. He doesn't know what a solid relationship is, or a grounded relationship is, or a healthy relationship, not even now. So growing up not getting any solid relationships, or having a solid, healthy view of a relationship, and then not experiencing one, or I feel like he genuinely did love Chelsea Davy, and I feel like she genuinely did love him, but that was another bruise, another very toxic situation, because you had two toxic souls clinging to each other, and there's a lot of passion and a lot of fire, which I feel like he also got into with Megan. But Chelsea damaged him by him not being enough to stick it out and be with the firm. I think that hurt him more than he lets at. I'm pretty sure, that was probably his first real I'm in love relationship, and to lose that, to have someone who matters and lost that, was kind of like losing his mom all over again. Hence why they cannot seem to separate fully. She even went to his wedding. But okay, so let's talk about what happened when he met Megan and why the choices were made. We're gonna jump a little bit. So let's talk about what I feel Harry's first impressions of Megan were and why he started to fall for her and felt comfortable with her right away. So, one, she's well educated and she speaks well. She carries herself well. Like, she's got that calm sounding voice. She's older. She's somebody he would have thought had her shit together in ways that maybe he's never experienced before. She's very attractive, successful, has that sexy edge to her, seemingly not afraid of being in the public eye or spotlight, used to the attention, and willing to take on his lifestyle and the firm, which I feel like he never really fully got with the other girls. I feel like they were very fearful, very hesitant. I'm not saying that Megan was these things. I'm saying this is how he saw Megan, why he fell for her so quickly. The second part of it, he thought he was meeting someone unbiased and had a genuine chance to be his true self, and was able to be in his mind, his own self for the first time probably ever in his life with someone. He just felt that comfort level. But I don't feel like Megan was being legit, and we'll get to that later. But again, this is from Harry's perspective of things. Harry always wanted a family and children, and knew Megan was older. He didn't want to risk losing her to trivial BS from his family or from the press, so he rushed it and got engaged quickly. Remember what I said about Chelsea Davy? They were in a very long, drawn-out relationship. She was dragged through the press. She had a lot of fear about it, and he didn't want that to happen a second time. He didn't want somebody who was important to him to slip through his fingers, so I feel like that's why the engagement happened so quickly, and because she was older and they wanted to have children. And he was, honestly, I really feel like Harry spent most of his time trying to find a wife because he wanted children and a family, and he wanted a happy one. And in his mind, Megan reminded a lot of his mother. He saw a lot of qualities in her, but again, I feel like that was fake and planned. We'll get into that later. But so here comes a woman who's seemingly got her shit together, reminds him a lot of his mom, wants a family like he does, wants to settle down, everything he's been waiting for, right? He jumped the gun a little bit, but in his mind, this is why he made the decision. The truth of it is, Harry usually dated younger or about his age. He also has mother issues as far as abandonment issues and a protection complex. So all that wrapped in together, and then all these intense feelings he never really felt before as far as being able to be himself. And his mind was all legit and authentic, and so he jumped the gun. Why do I keep saying gum? I don't know. Megan was not being authentic. I 100% feel that in my spiritual sense. I do connect with spirits. I did go directly to the source, which is Diana. I don't ever want to be harping on somebody if they really are innocent in certain areas. Anyway, all I'm going to say is she wasn't being legit, but I don't necessarily know if she realizes that, because she's got her own mental issues, which we'll get into her story. Again, this is Harry's perspective. Alright, so leading up to the wedding, Harry had his blinders on, ignoring red flags that were going off. I feel like he did like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision, but I'm so far in it now. I do feel like there was a moment of fear. I don't know how long it lasted, or if it lasted right up to the wedding, but I do feel like he put blinders on and was just hoping for the best here, because that's what he's taught to do. You make a plan and you stick to it and you see it through. I feel like he married in secret so she wouldn't get away, and because he feared the family and the press would interfere. There's a lot of press leading up to the wedding. It was mostly good press, I feel like, but there was starting to get an undertone with people in the family, and I feel like he just wanted to lock it down and honestly have something for themselves because they're under the spotlight so much. Alright, so let's jump to after the marriage, not very long after. I feel like a lot of those warning bells happened again. I know that they go on and talk about how happy they were and things, they had each other, but I feel like at this time there was a lot of tension, a lot of bickering, a lot of anger, a lot of heated feelings because, they're both adjusting, realizing that maybe they married each other without really knowing the true version of the other person. Let's talk about the truth about Harry's mental issues. He's severely protective and has protection issues because deep down in his body he blames the firm for not protecting his mother, and he also feels like he should have protected his mother, so he's going to project that onto his wife. I let my mother down, I don't want to let my wife down. So he naturally has that need to protect syndrome, and sometimes overly to the point of being a little bit clingy or being a little bit strict or even bossy at times. Overdoes it because there's a lot of fear attached to it. Feeling like he's going to lose his significant others to another man, always that fear of cheating. Maybe he was cheated on a lot in the past, but I feel like it has something to do with his parents. When Meghan is unhappy, he takes it personally and feels lousy in the soul for it. Feeling like he's failing as a husband is very detrimental to his attitude and how he sees himself, because he doesn't know how to properly self-love. His happiness and his joy really comes from the output of the people he loves. If they're giving love and affection and praising him, he feels good about himself because he needs that recognition in another because he doesn't know how to love himself. So if Meghan's miserable and unhappy in any way, he's feeling like he's failing, which makes him question himself as a man and question himself as a human being, which goes back to the pecking order situation. So he puts everyone's happiness above his own. So even if he's miserable and Meghan's happy, that is what he thinks contentment is, which is sad. Alright, on top of the fact, he struggles with being an emotional mute. Although he wants to express himself, I feel like words are very hard for him. He might write letters or not even do that. He might show his love in buying gifts and being affectionate or using sex because he doesn't know how to, like, big romantic gestures is going to say everything that he wants to say to you because he doesn't know how to be emotional or allow them out correctly. Doesn't want to make a fool of himself. That fear of making a fool of himself is great in him. Not missing the mark also freaks him out. So he's like, I don't know how to get my feelings out of my body, so I'm just going to try to hug them, touch them, be affectionate, sleep with them, buy them gifts, make a romantic dinner outside because I don't know how to say what I want to say to you, basically. Not only does he not know how to properly express and show his love, he doesn't know how to properly receive it. And he doesn't recognize what good love, true, solid love is against love that is like half-assed or to get things or somebody blowing smoke up his butt. has a hard time discerning that stuff. Okay, let's talk about his mom issues. Because of Diana, obviously he has a fear of a loved one dying. He's afraid to let someone in and then lose them in any way, whether it's to cheating, whether it's to death, whether them leaving him. Abandonment issues is very strong, and fear of death. Maybe not his own death, but death of other people that he cares about. Like I said, abandonment and cheating issues, fear of letting others down. Instead of trying to achieve things for himself, everything in his mind he's doing for his family, and to let them down would be a failure in his heart, in his soul. That's failing life. So he has this constant need for the status quo, to be able to give them the life of luxury, to be the solid dad, to be the strong one, the shoulder to cry on, the reliable one. It's like beating his soul to be that way, which is unhealthy. I mean, it's good to some extent, but to feel it that strongly and that intensely that your life is meaningless if you fail at that, that's toxic. Let's talk about his father issues, that he had a lack of male guidance, companionship, or support. He has a long list of resentments and anger that he never processed with his father. He's always feeling replaceable to his dad, and like he has to compete for his attention, and that ultimately he is not as loved as William is. Those are deep underlying things that would affect his relationship with Archie and his children, would affect his relationship with his wife. I feel like Harry has a lot of emotional traumas, a lot of growing and developing to do, and I feel like, I hate to say the cult word again, because I don't really mean it in an offensive way. It's just so you can wrap your mind about it. He just walked away from a cult. And for the next 5 to 10 years, he's going to be learning how to process what we learned to process before we were 10 years old. He's got to learn the world the way we know it, and it's going to be very hard for him to comprehend that and make decisions for himself. I feel like he's just following the leader because he's lost in this world. He doesn't know, he's got one way of knowing things and doing things, and it doesn't jive with this world. It doesn't jive with what his wife wants to do or what his new team wants to do. So he's constantly on a tug of war of what I know and what I don't know, and he's going to make so many blunders. He's going to put his foot in his mouth 1,000,000 times, and he's just going to follow what he feels is solid and good for him, even if it's toxic. So I know that I always come to bat for Harry, but this is why. Because I'm not calling him as a person immature. I don't think that he's a baby or anything like that, but I just see a child lost in this world. Emotion. I'm a healer, so I deal with people's auras and emotions and their higher self. He's this little innocent child in my healer eyes, lost, just looking for, have you seen my mom? Have you seen my dad? Just walking around, that panic, that feeling of I lost my mom, like what am I gonna do? Even though he's trying to be a man, he's got all these things. He's got his trauma from the war. He's got his trauma from all of his horrible relationships with his family and girls he dated. He's got trauma about losing his mom and losing other people as well. And trauma from being kicked out of his family. And, I don't really feel like he ever thought they would do that. It's probably very shocking. And I could see him crying a lot about that. Not that he would admit it, but there's trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma, and nobody is there for Harry. I don't feel like Megan is at all. She's dealing with her own issues, her own life traumas, which we'll get to in hers, makes her incapable of being a support system for Harry in a correct way, even if she wanted to. both need healers, spiritual, physical, mental, some kind of healer to step in and intervene. Because, you got Harry very lost in this world and lost in his traumas, and you have Meghan lost in this world and lost in their traumas. And they're just trying to make it together, and they're making horrible decisions. I just feel like it's a year from now, their relationship's going to be very different. And 5 years from now, Harry's going to be able to see what I'm seeing. As far as the toxic relationship he's in. He might think it's secure and steady and stable. They might both be trying, but they're both very traumatized people. And remember what I said, if you're a very tortured, toxic soul, and again, toxic is not a negative word here, it just means you haven't healed, so you're not going to be able to do things in a relationship correctly. You're not going to make it work. This is why divorce happens so often, why the divorce rate is so high. So I just really feel like his future is going to be very rocky and bumpy, and his mental health is going to continue to landslide, and he's going to continue to feel more and more isolated and more alone, even in his own marriage, because there really is no one listening to what he is saying. They're all focused on Meghan and what she's talking about and what her experience was. This is what hurts my heart a lot as a healer. Harry has this emotional capacity on a scale unlike most. As a healed man, he could change the world. I would put all the faith in his hands. I'm not saying right now, but if he healed and he really became spiritually inclined, he would do amazing things. He would have so many amazing ideas. He wouldn't feel lost anymore. There would be no resentments. There would be no hurt. And I feel like everybody wants to get to that point, but I see it most in his eyes that he wants to be free of it. I don't see that in Meghan's. So that was just my little healer. If I was working with Harry as a healer, this is what the kind of things you have to really grasp and understand about the person to help them. I really hope Harry gets the help and support he needs. A healer in any sense. It doesn't have to be a holistic weirdo healer like me. It could be a psychologist. It could be a friend, anything. I just feel like he deserves to know what true contentment is, what a true loving relationship is, what compassion really is, and just be free to go out on his path and do what he wants to do without thinking about what was beaten in his head and just thinking about what he wants to do. I think his mother wants that most for him. So I'm hoping and praying out there that he gets sent that person that he needs to understand him, to take the step back and not just look at right now or the last couple years, but look at his whole life and be able to help him. I'm very frustrated with him because I feel like he's been, over these last couple years, I feel like a lot of us are frustrated with him. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, what is wrong with you? Take the blinders off, and I have to stop and really remind myself and go through this list. Like, remember, he's emotionally stunted. He didn't grow up like we did. He's lost aimlessly on his own, and he's trying. He's trying, and he's trying. I feel like he tries more than Meghan. That's why I continue to stand up for Harry. Again, I'm not making excuses. I feel like understanding the psychology of a person takes the anger out of things. So if you want to know why he's following Meghan aimlessly, Meghan is all he has right now. He doesn't realize that she's toxic. He doesn't have that capacity to do that. He thinks that everything is for the best coming from her, which is even sadder. again, I'm not talking shit about Megan. She's also mentally going through a lot, and like I said, incapable of being that support system. Alright, so I hope this was helpful. If you want more on Harry in this aspect, I will do another one. Just hit me up in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful to make you understand things a little bit better. And like I said, anyone out there in his bubble who's a healer like me, you should hit him up because you need some help. Alright, see you guys. Have a great day. I'm going to take a break and we'll get right into Megan's after this.